Good afternoon, all. Hope you all are doing well. My name is Sanjukta Dutta, and I am from West Bengal. I have completed my master's and B.Ed last year. And as I was telling, this is my very first time writing a paper and presenting a paper. So if I do a mistake, which I will do, I think, so please do forgive me. Okay, so I'm just starting. The name that I have given to my paper is Understanding Postmodern Feminism in the Literary Compositions of Female Writers in India. So, the topic feminism is a topic of great interest and critical importance. And when IFEST came up with the topic postmodernism, I thought of amalgamating these two isms. And therefore the resultant discussion came as postmodern feminism. So in this paper I just discussed about what feminism is, what modernism is, which we I think we all are accustomed with these definitions and the theories and ideas. And I just tried to draw the similarities between the two isms. uh, as we were discussing that postmodernism in certain sense, a very little certain sense, a continuation of modernism, but it is more a tendency to break out from the set established rules of the society. Right. It's always about doing something new, to bring something new, the avant-garde theory. It's all about doing something new, creating something new, presenting a new perspective to the whole world. And the movement feminism has similarities with postmodernism in this aspect, that feminism is a socio-political movement which which is striving hard to eradicate all those set rules of patriarchies that are not giving us freedom, not giving us the rights, so that we can bloom or flourish ourselves into a complete society. Feminism is all about those protests against the patriarchal setups. And I think these are the similarities between the two isms. And to show my point, or to prove my point, the text that I have chosen is Mahasheta Devi's Mother of 1084, Amrita Pritam's Pinjar, Shashi Deshpande's That Long Silence, Anita Desai's Fasting Feasting, and Kamla Das's Alphabet of Lust. And as sir was telling this morning, that isms are always present in every text. Someone was asking you whether post-humanism can be found in certain text, or in every text. So isms are present in every each and every text. It's our responsibility, is it's our ability to find out where they are present and how they are present, and to show it in front of the world. So the first text is Mahasheta Devi's Mother of 1084. It was actually written in Bengali, and then it was translated in English. It is the story about Broti and his mother Shujata. Broti is actually a Nakshal, Nakshal, right? And being a Bengali myself, I come from West Bengal, and we are very aware of the Nakshal movement. And I think that the Nakshal movement itself is very post-modern in its approach, because it was a socio-political and socio-economical movement that were protesting against the then setup of protesting against the rules and regulations that were prevalent in those 20th century Bengal society. So Nakshal movement is very much postmodern in itself. So this story is about Sujata, a very mild Bengali woman who has been the very epitome of a good wife and mother, because she is never questioning, she is never demanding anything from her husband. She is always like, yes sir, whatever you will tell, I will be doing yes sir to you. But the very morning when her son is getting killed in an encounter, being a mother, her whole world is getting shattered. And when she is deciding that, let's know the truth behind my son's encounter, and she is asking her husband to, let's go out and find the reason behind my son's encounter, her husband is not supporting her. And this is the very because being a bhadralok, it is mentioned here, that being a very obedient citizen of the society, we should never question or counter question the set rules of our society. And so he is deciding not to support his wife, but the mother, she is stepping alone in this world, and it is shown in this novel. It is given this post-feministic outlook, that how a mother is stepping outside this brave world, not just to find the truth behind her son's encounter, but also to find her lost identity, her lost voice. The identity she kept hidden or was concealed under the setups of this patriarchal society, the identity that got lost long ago while when she was being a good wife and good mother of this society. So she is having a journey for herself, for her own identity, for her own voice. She is doing not only justice to motherhood, but she is also doing justice to her own identity. And this is the very motto, or very message what feminism ask you to be yourself, to know what your abilities are. The next story is Amrita Pritam's Pinjar, which is a love story, a inter-religion love story between Rashid and Puro. Rashid is a Muslim guy who is kidnapping Puro because of some family feud, she is getting kidnapped by him. But once she manages to escape from him, and she is visiting her own family. But we find how selfish her own family is, that they are not accepting her because she got kidnapped, and it's a matter of great shame for the family that their daughter is coming back after being kidnapped for so many days. And so she's having no other option than to return to Rashid. Rashid is keeping her well, but few days later we see that same scenario is happening to her own sister-in-law Lajo. Lajo is also getting kidnapped, but Puro, who is, I think she's a true epitome of feminism, because she is not keeping herself away that, oh, such a misfortune happened to me. So why should I involve my energy in rescuing other people? Rather, she is extending her helping hand, and she is doing everything to rescue Lajo. And this novel is coming up with this idea that this is true feminism, this is true postmodern feminism, where we grow, where we do not keep ourselves aloof or drowned within our own miseries and sadness. Rather, we grow together to promote womankind. And in this context, I would also like to say that feminism is not matriarchy. Feminism is not matriarchy. Matriarchy is like where woman is in power, and they want male to be like they want to dominate the male portion of the society. Rather, feminism is about equal opportunity and equality. You give me equal opportunity, I will give you my 100%. I don't want to dominate you, and I will also not give you the opportunity to dominate me. We all are equal, and we all should enjoy that equality. And this brings us to the next story, which is Shashi Deshpande's Long Silence. It is a story about a couple, Jaya and Mohan, who were not at all happy with each other. They were not communicating well with each other. And Jaya is a very sweet, simple girl. She is very curious in nature. She loves to write. And once, when Mohan is getting fired from his job because of doing certain corruption in his office, Jaya is taking up her hobby of writing and earning from writing. Though Mohan is not liking this option to get feed on someone's wife money, but he is having no other option, and he is allowing her to write. But Jaya comes up with this idea that when someone is being a good wife, it's not necessary to restrict herself only in being a good wife. She can simultaneously be a good wife, a good mother, a good daughter, a good writer, a good human being at the end of the day. And these are the various feministic approaches that the authors, this female Indian authors, have tried to portray in their novels. And this really shows the progress we are making towards this feministic approach. But as we were discussing, are we really progressing? Like, I am giving a lecture on feminism and so, and tomorrow when I will go to find a bride for my brother, that time I will say, no, no, this girl is so beautiful, she is fair, she is not much educated, she will be not much demanding and questioning, so let's just choose her, let's make her my brother's wife. So what kind of progress we are making? We need to change ourselves first, we need to change our own mentality, right? So this brings us to the next novel. Oh, I am taking so much time. It is Anita Desai's Fasting Feasting. It is about Uma, who is a very middle-aged spinster, and she has to leave her studies so that she can look after her brother Arun. While on the other hand, Arun is given all the privileges and opportunities so that he can excel in his studies. And this reminds me of Mahesh Dattani's Tara, where the parents are choosing one child over the other child, especially the boy child, and killing the daughter so that the boy can survive. And in this novel, we are seeing how women often become the very easy victim of cultural oppression. But the most surprising thing that we see in this novel is Uma's mother, who, uh, I don't know why, either she is very much ignorant about her own identity or demands, or she's. Shall I stop? Okay.
You can just conclude.
Yeah, just conclude, Sanjay.
Okay, so these are the various novels which shows us that women cannot be kept limited within just the definitions of mothers and sisters and daughter. They can be versatile, they can be dynamic, and these novels really deserves our appreciation and credit, because they not only shows the portrayal, the power, the strength of womanhood, but also help us to identify our own position, our own progress towards a feministic world or society. So that's all, and that was the discussion.
Yeah, Sanjukta, it was a very nice presentation, and I could see that you have a very good awareness of things, not only things, but also the literary texts you are speaking about. Very good. You are a student. I see that you are a student. So
Yeah.
it's unbelievable because when we were students, we didn't have any idea there are seminars happening or we could present papers. So young people coming and presenting papers and with so much variety and richness. It's unbelievably good. So, dear participants, do we have questions and suggestions? We have a young participant, a student making a presentation. Encourage her with questions and suggestions and feedback.
I really like the way that you connected, you weren't just limited to the fictional and textual material. You connected it to the real world. Like when you said, when you go searching for a bride for your brother. That is a true fact. There's a gutter between reality and fiction.
Yeah, that is true. I have a couple of observations to make regarding your paper. The first one is, when we are writing a research paper, as different from, for example, an essay that we write or an article we write for a magazine. In research, we are expected to be objective, and people often misunderstand objectivity to mean we shouldn't be using I or we or you. That is not, and people are very fanatic about that. They say that I should the first person should not be used in writing research papers and things like that, but that is not the original actual idea. The idea is objectivity in the sense we should be absent. We should be absent, not that I shouldn't use I, but that my perspective or my opinion or what I am should be as less active in the conclusions I make or in the study I make as possible. This is the idea with objectivity. So it is, as Richu said, it is very good that papers connect to our lives, but it is an unfortunate aspect of research that research has its limitations when it comes to connecting with life and saying things related to. I know that you said those things because this is a presentation and you can do that helped everyone connect with your paper. The examples you gave, your brother, what will happen. So that's very good. So, but when we write, we have to be careful of staying away from the personal. That is one thing. And the second observation I have is when you are choosing a topic for a paper presentation, uh, you now saw that you couldn't complete it within the stipulated time. That is fine, and I know that 10 minutes or 15 minutes isn't sufficient to make a proper presentation. I know that. But the thing is, we have to be clear about the scope of our paper. And the scope or the range of our paper shouldn't be so broad that we won't be able to complete our research or include all the things within a research paper of 1500 or 2500 words. Now you have chosen many texts. Very good. It is very good, but it would be better if you can limit the number of texts and make the analysis a bit more deeper. That is the idea. Okay, nothing wrong with the analysis you have done, but later on, as you proceed with your research, try to make the scope of research a little more compact and simpler. Any novel, any work, Fasting, Feasting, or That Long Silence, anything you had done, each work itself deserves a complete paper, right? So
It's not quantity, the quality. I
yeah,
should.
there is quality. There is quality. No issues. Very much true. You have good quality, and we are all proud of young people like you coming up and presenting papers. And IFEST was telling us, IFEST, the idea is giving opportunity to young people and help them. Use this as a launch pad on their career growth. So, all the best, Sanjukta. We are all proud of you.
Excuse me, I have an observation to make
Yes, yes,
here.
please go
If
ahead.
so it
Please
took
tell.
me a long time to switch on my video. I don't know why.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
not very
please
familiar
go
with
ahead.
Google Meet.
Thank
Hello,
you.
everybody. Uh, you've made wonderful observations, Dr. Mangattu or Mr. Mangattu. I don't know, uh, but very well presented, Sanjukta. What you should take away from his advice is. What Mr. I'm sorry, are you Dr. Mangattu, Professor Mangattu? Please, would you just
I'm just Manu.
Okay, let him be Manu. Okay. So, what you should take away from his advice is that you should narrow down your research. That's very important, particularly in a research paper. The kind of topic or the kind of selection that you made is good for a thesis or a dissertation, which is a broader, sphere or broader spectrum. But when you are doing research or when you're writing a research paper, your paper should be such that you should be able to narrow down. You shouldn't have a general area. You should have a focus, and when you will have focus, you'll obviously be able to present yourself properly and also present your ideas properly. And secondly, as to when he was saying about so, as you mentioned, that we should keep our personal away. It should not be objective. We should not have I, we, etc. I think he's very right there as well. But as far as written paper is concerned, I think, sir, I would beg to differ here, that if she has used her personal perspective, I think this is the only platform where she can actually come and say all these things along with the scholarly aspect that she has presented. So I really liked it, although I've never used it. I've presented at and I don't know how many n number of conferences. I've never done this ever, but I liked it because you people are new. You are coming from a newer generation,
Yeah.
young generation. So it's good, actually.
Narit ma'am,
Thank you.
I need to cut you short because we
Ma'am and sir, it's not the thing that I told about my brothers. That thing, it's like it's a flow of when I was telling it. It just came out as a flow. I have not mentioned that in my paper. My personal
No, that's
observation. I
exactly what I'm saying. That along with your scholarly paper, which you've written, this is the platform where you could have added some other dimension. As these people have also mentioned that we don't want you to just simply read your paper. We want it. I don't know what they want, but they don't want you to just read the paper.
that's
yeah.
why
Okay, so
that's why
Very true.
Thank
I
you.
Very true.
did it.
Very nice
I
observations. Thank
haven't
you.
mentioned those things in paper, but thank you for all your observations and advices, and I will really try to keep them in mind, and I will try to do my
And
next
maybe we can have a paradigm shift in research. Why can't we? People come with ideas and people do things, and that is when changes can happen. So let's hope that
I think
this
Richu is
kind.
getting very uncomfortable with us
Oh,
taking a lot of
Richu,
her
Richu
time.
is
So let's
already
move
Yeah,
on to the
open.
next
waiting
Yeah.
time. We
presentation.
are waiting into others' time. Others will be
Okay,
angry.
okay,
Right?
okay. Let's continue. Okay,
Next
thank you
session.
for the observation as well. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sanjukta. All
Sanjukta,
the
all
best.
the best in your future research projects. Now I invite Raja M.
Okay. Yeah,
Please
I'll
take it
share.
away.
Wait, wait, sir.
Nice name, Milton Raja.
Yeah, wait. Yeah,
Strategies
wait, sir.
East and the West.
Hi, sir. Hi to everyone. So
Yes,
my
Yes,
name
Raja.
is Raja.
yeah.
Can I start?
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So my name is Raja. I am doing MPhil, Center for English Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. So my present paper is on a critical study of torture in Chandrakumar's Lockup, a novel, and Vertrimaaran's Visaranai, a film. Before going to the presentation, I'll briefly introduce the novel as well as the movie. So Chandrakumar, the novel in Tamil, it was written in 2006 and it was translated into English, Lockup, Jottings of an Ordinary Man, 2017. So this the film director Vertrimaaran, he was inspired by the story and he made into a film. Actually, Chandrakumar, he was one of the auto driver during the 1980s. He was arrested by the in the Coimbatore region. He was put into jail. He was tortured by the police. The experience of the torture 25 years after he recalled his own experiences and he wrote this novel. So present paper I have taken for consideration of this English novel as well as the and its film adaptation of Visaranai. So present paper is an attempt to explore torture and analyze the relationship between the state and the torturer and the victims, the experience of pain and the emotions. How the police use their power to violently destroy the lives of four innocent people under custodial war trial. So torture is, what does it mean torture? So torture is one of the human practices in the modern era. So torture is it mechanical? So when you do torture someone, it gives rise to feelings or emotions. Emotions are heterogeneous. Joy, fear, or angry. There are several emotions. In the modern era, all the states they are doing torture. For example, democratic country, authoritarian country, or else totalitarian country, or communist country, all the states they are doing the torture. They are doing the torture on the two primary the focal way. The first one is to extract the information or to find out the truth on a war prisoner or someone is captured by the state. But in this the especially in this movie, the someone is captured by the state, how they are going under how they undergo the torture. So Talal Asad, Saudi-born cultural anthropologist, inflicting pain on a prisoner differentiated from the pre-modern to modern. Thus, the rhetoric of denial, which is the other side of the rhetoric of accusation, is typical of modern or modernizing governments and is linked to liberal sensibility regarding pain. So I said clearly here differentiated from pre-modern to modern, torture is differentiated. How? In those days you can see even in Indian society also, torture is done in open display. Especially the other people should not do the same crime. That is why they do the state is doing the torture in the public display. But when it comes to modern, it is changed. It is closed manner they are doing the torture. So next, regarding in this movie, I'll explain the context of how they are arrested, how it leads to the vulnerability or stereotype. So four people from Tamil Nadu, Murugan and his three of his friends, they went to work in Andhra Pradesh, in Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh. They are working in this labor, this minimum labor job, and they are staying in a public park. These poor people, they are leading a good life on one particular night. So one guy who was arrested by the police, it led to the arrest of the three of his friends. So this one guy Abzal, he was coming from the, after watching a movie he was coming from, so he was interrogated by the police. The police, they asked in Telugu, he was replied in Hindi. For your translate, for you I have translated. So this vulnerability in India, how it happens, and three to four grounds it happens. The first one is the caste, the second one is religion. Caste means lower caste and higher caste, those paradox. And vulnerability, this religion means the minorities in India, Muslims or Christians. And next one is community, and the fourth one is, you can say, class also. The stereotype. So we have set of notions when you say this Muslims, or when you say are Tamils, when you say are Bengalis. So we have a set of stereotypical ideas we have. So in this conversation we can find from the movie. So the police is asking that, what's your name? Afzal sir. Where you are from, Al Qaeda or ISI. So when you the Muslims of India, when it comes to that, we have the stereotypical notion is that, so they are from Al Qaeda or ISI. We have the terrorizing mind. And on the other hand, he is telling that, no sir, I come from Tamil Nadu to work here. So police is asking this, are you from Liberation of Tigers Tamilam? When you say the Tamil people, in the sense it related to the, they are the supporter of the LTTE, or else they are from the LTTE. So he said, no sir, I belong to Tamil Nadu. So torture is to be as old as the history of human civilization. Firstly, the torture, it was recorded in Sumerian code of Ur-Nammu in the 21st century BC, and Babylonian code of Hammurabi 18th century BC. So one of the Iranian-born American academician specialized in torture, Darius Rajali, he speaks about in democracy countries, torture is usually used on three grounds. The first one is national security model. The second one is juridical model. The third one is civil discipline model. So what does it mean, national security model? In the sense, in the name of security, the state is capturing someone, they do torture. In the juridical model, in the sense, if someone is doing crime, especially the murder or robbery, the police, they arrest, they produce to the court will punish them. The civil discipline model, in the sense, each and every community, each and every caste, we have our own customs and laws which is not related to the constitutional. For instance, Ka Panchayat in India. So Darius Rajali, the systematic infliction of, he speaks about the torture. He said the systematic infliction of physical trauma on detained individuals by the state officials for police purpose, for confessions, for information, or intimidation. So these all feelings of bodily pain can be classified into two categories. One is internal, another one is external. Internal means muscular and biochemical. External means such as the voice or demeanor or the manner of walking. So this the paper is this analyzing the relationship between the state and the torture. How the state is doing the torture. The state machinery functions through the institutions such as military, police, bureaucracy, and judicial. The torture includes a primary physical act, the infliction of pain, verbal act, and the interrogation. So this I said clearly, the torture is differentiated from pre-modern to modern. So this the state has the right to control the individual body. They can do torture in any place, but they never do in a open place due to due to the social issues. So this, when it comes to torture, the world is an universal one, but it reduces into a single room or set of rooms. So torture rooms, it is called in Greece guest rooms. It is called in Philippines safe houses. As you know, in India, it is called a lockup or prison. So function of state. So any state, I have referred to several states. Any states, it functions according to the concept or notion of we and other. In this especially movie, the protagonists, they are from non-Telugu identity. That is why they were arrested. They put into jail. They were tortured. Even not only in this, each and every state, each and every villages, the notion of we and other, it functions. For instance, one village, one caste is dominant, but the same caste will not be dominant in other villages. So it may be varied region to region. So I would like to just tell about this. I'm referring to the James Coetzee novel, Waiting for the Barbarians. One of the characters, Colonial Joel, he claims that pain is truth. Colonial Joel speaks with the magistrate regards truth. Thus, first I get lies, and you see, this is what happens. First lies, then more lies, then more pressure, then the break, then more pressure, then the truth. This is how you get the truth. That is how you get the truth. So he was telling that, see, even in balloon also, if you give the more pressure, it will burst out. So he was telling that if you torture someone certain point of time, they will burst out the truth will come. So he is telling that pain is truth. So in the same context, which is not applicable when it comes to this novel, when it comes to this movie, these people, they were arrested by the police forcing them to accept high robbery case. There was no way. One certain point of time, they were forced, or unbearable pain forced them to accept it. So they are produced in the court. In the court, the judge is asking, did you do the crime, high robbery case, did you do? They said in a chorus voice, sir, we didn't do. Sir, we didn't do. So he was telling that one saying, did you do or not? So judge would not believe them because they are the laborers. So judge will believe based on the fact only. So he wouldn't believe the what they are telling. So what is truth here? So judge would not believe, showed their marked or tortured body by removing the dress. The judge begins to believe what it means to be the truth. Here, a symbol of marked and tortured body as an embodiment of truth, and also the body as an embodiment for carrying a vehicle of truth. So in the movie as well as the novel, there are several places the extreme form of torture can be read by the reader as well as visualized by the spectator. Just one example from the novel. So I'll kick you. One quote from the novel. I'll kick you, but settle for a hard stamp up my penis. The penis got pain, and the hands were still tied. Due to severe pain, my hands were unable to grab the penis. I had to use my thighs to scrunch sand into my tiny mound between my legs and squirm to rest my abused penis on it and deposit some of my body weight too. And so I lay prone on the ground. So my last part of the section, which is speaking about questioning or analyzing about this in both lockup as well as Visaranai, which one gives more vibrant effect to the reader as well as to the spectator? Which one gives more effect when police is doing the torture? Which one gives more effect to the reader or spectator? Obviously, we know very well the movie gives a more visual effect to the spectator. A single visual footage can capture several factors. So in the movie, in the novel, you have to read, you have to explain everything in words. But when it comes, so when it comes to movie, pain does not have a language and it is inexpressible.
Milton, your time is up.
Can you
Please
conclude?
wind up.
Yeah, that's all. So to my conclusion is that in the modern era or modern trend, so it's each and every state they cannot avoid they can touch this unavoidable one. So the solution is to make awareness of the civil society, human rights organization, and judiciary. So thank you, sir. This is what I thought to present this paper.
Thank you, Milton. It was good and it was very touchy. The descriptions you made and the analysis of torture. Yeah, it's a very important point that it's something that should be brought forth. Yeah, a very good research. Any questions, participants? Milton, you were quoting Coetzee's novel "Waiting for the
Yes,
Barbarians," and
yes.
there it says, there it is said, "Pain is truth," and you seem to disagree with that with regard to these two works
No,
that
no,
you are working.
that context is not applicable when it comes to this film.
Fine. So, what is the alternative? That is my question.
No,
What
that
is
is why they showed their marked body. That is the real embodiment of truth.
so body always embody the truth? Can body always embody the truth?
Not sometimes, not. It depends on the context.
Um, the conclusion was that, right? The body embodies the truth, and the judiciary and other state mechanisms should be made more aware of things, but torture is inevitable. That is the conclusion, right?
Yeah, torture is inevitable in the modern era by the state, any state.
Mm-hmm. And what did you feel about those terms? You mentioned a few terms used by different countries. In India, it is lockup or prison. Other countries, we have guest house or safe room. So, what do you make of that? Do we
No,
need
but
better
they do the
terms in India? Probably.
on each and every country they are doing the torture, but they are using the different names. But the nuances or the experiences are the same, but they use the different terms. That is what I try to refer.
I think that the experience is also different. In India, things aren't great, and to an extent, in developed countries at least, the prison system is far better. The treatment that
No,
we
no,
hmm?
sir. Even developed countries they use this machine made. They never use the hand. They use the machine to torture them. I have referred in my whole paper.
Okay,
The
okay,
in
okay.
my
Uh-huh.
paper.
Right, right. Okay, that was nice, Milton. Probably a little more you can work on the conclusion part, I felt. Conclusion
Okay.
seemed a little slim, and
Oh,
probably you couldn't bring all those things into the presentation. I can understand. So it could be a bit more because you were using a lot of quotations. I felt you can draw your conclusions based on some of those secondary sources that you have referred to, rather than simply say it is inevitable. Yeah, it is inevitable, but how and things like that. Maybe if you ask a few more questions, why is it inevitable? So, and how is it inevitable? So, the answers to those questions would bring in better conclusions. I feel it's just a suggestion. Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir, for your suggestion. It's really helpful, sir. I will rework on conclusions, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Milton. So
Okay.
that was nice.
Thank you,
Okay.
Rajesh
Okay.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
We'll go to the next paper presenter, Dr. Sapna Dogra. Ma'am, you can start your presentation.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to everyone. My name is Dr. Sapna Dogra. I'm working as an assistant professor in Government College Baroh, Kangra, Himachal Pradesh University. So I'll just share my screen with you.
Happily, Shatrupal ma'am is here, and this presentation is about graphic narratives, and Shatrupal ma'am's talk was also on graphic novels. So I hope
Yes.
Shatrupal ma'am will have more things to share today. Okay, this paper. Thank you.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Continue.
So the title of my paper is Graphic Narratives and Social Activism, a study of select narratives from Drawing the Line, Indian Women Fight Back. Graphic narratives are being increasingly used to voice the marginal and the oppressed. Gender based violence and growing gender divide has fueled an unprecedented upsurge in graphic art by the feminists. One such is Drawing the Line Indian Women Fight Back, edited by Priya Kurian, Larissa, and Ludmilla. The writers have attempted to redefine femininity in contemporary India by building a counter hegemonic narrative that opposes dominant masculinity's aggressive tendency. It is an anthology of 14 short graphic stories that unravel various aspects of being a woman in a society saturated with patriarchal mindset. This paper seeks to study three of its stories: the photo, which is a comment on society's desperation to get girls married once they reach a certain age; the prey, which is a critique of male gaze; and basic space, that hilariously compiles various strategies women use to mark their personal spaces. It provides a refreshing perspective on the plight of young women in our culture. This is the cover of the book. It was published by the very famous feminist publishing house Zuban. Gender, sexuality, embarrassment, coming of age, family, sisterhood, racism, classism, and political struggles are all addressed in this graphic novel, which is made up of 14 narratives transformed into chapters of actual experiences of women in India and beyond.
Is there an issue?
Sapna ma'am, we have lost you. You are not audible. Your presentation is still on. Your video is stuck and you are mute. Sapna ma'am, if you
Sapna
can
ma'am.
hear us, please rejoin.
And offer
Ah,
expectations of
okay,
ourselves
please
in.
continue. Yeah, yeah. Now you are audible. Please continue.
Sapna ma'am,
This
we
is
lost you for a bit. Continue,
okay.
please.
Okay, so this is the first story, The Photo by Reshu Singh. It's a story of a girl named Bena who doesn't want to get married, while everyone in a family has a different take on it. But more than that, it's about Bena facing her fear of losing her true self. The story is a study of the idea of identity and of our expectations of ourselves and each other. This is a picture from the story where the word it's the right time to get married. So this story uses Bena to portray the modern Indian girl who wishes to choose when to marry, but is pressurized under the patriarchal mindset prevalent in India, where even a mother who is educated feels that she needs someone to take care of her. It is based on the general observation of the writer Reshu Singh about the restlessness that develops within an Indian home when a girl reaches marriageable age. There are many reasons why girls are getting married later, and it reflects our time for better or for worse. Women have tended to get married at a young age than men, partially because of sexism and the spinster rhetoric, and also women were historically less likely to have formal education or take up a career, adding to the burden. The fact that some women are putting off marriage for later is a sign of how much better things are for women now. They have more autonomy and more choices to focus on other areas of their lives. And this is a quote. She says, "My name is Bena. My family can't wait to marry me off and party hard at my wedding." Bena is thoughtful. This is a quote by Maria Tahir. Bena is thoughtful and insightful, examining everyone around her, including her mother, who Bena says is their family superhero. The character notes that her mother had ambitions before getting married. She received her master's in economics and painted landscapes, but after marriage and children, she stopped these pursuits to take care of her family. Bena then asked the simple yet profound question, isn't being happy heroic too? This portrayal of sacrifice makes the audience stop and wonder if the questions of should or shouldn't I get married be replaced with will it make me happy? And will I still have my own identity if I do so instead? Many of the chapters in this book describe experiences felt by thousands of women around the world, both explicitly and covertly. We see many universal themes and problems that women face on a daily basis. The second story is The Prey by Nilima P. Aryan, sorry. This story is based on a Malayalam story, and sorry, I can't pronounce the title of the story. It is written by writer Prasanna Aryan Prem. The
Idil,
Prey by
I
Nilima
can
P. Aryan.
Penned
Yes,
it
please.
said. It's at Penned.
Okay. All right, thank you. So, this story by Nilima has not used any speech until the last frame, but the pictures show all and tell all. Here, a man's lecherous gaze on a schoolgirl is compared to that of a vulture, which the girl manages to trap in a rat trap. Thus, ironically, the prey here is shown as the perpetrator trapped by the girl. The male gaze describes a way of portraying and looking at women that empowers men while sexualizing and diminishing women. While biologically, from early adolescence on, we are driven to look at and evaluate each other as potential mates. The male gaze twists this natural urge, turning the women into passive items to possess and use as props. Quite often, society undermines the dangers of a male gaze, brushing it off as a male fancy, and girls are told to keep quiet about it. The girl in the story, The Prey, does not tell her mother about the man whose gaze bothered her, but traps a vulture in a rat trap and feels vindicated. The last story under study is called Basic Space. by Kaveri Gopalakrishna. It's a humorous story, it's hilarious. And Kaveri, in basic space, has put together the answers she sought for the question that what lines do you draw as a woman from 18 women belonging to different age groups and backgrounds. The answers range from hilarious to violent. So there are women, she says that what would you like to do if there was no male gaze, or if there are things that if you had the freedom to do, what would you do? So there are various answers she get: braless at work, scratch in public anywhere, just keep a few pins. My mother has been doing so for years. But the bottom line is the serious reality of how women are stereotyped and are expected to dress and behave in a certain way prescribed by society, and how women long to do what they want to do without societal pressures and norms binding them. This is again a quote by Maria. This innovative graphic novel helps to facilitate many necessary conversations around race, shade, gender, employment, education. It pushes the boundaries on what is considered acceptable by mainstream society, including drawing nude women and women speaking their minds about topics traditionally considered taboo. The book is the first step, and this is the conclusion. The book is a first step, an experiment, and a necessary discussion starter, since discourse is what allows for change, and nothing can change unless women share their stories with one another. And this is a quote by the editor Priya Kurian, who writes in the afterword of the novel: we all have stories to tell, and the difference is really between thinking about it and getting down to actually doing it. In a world that is dominated by stories that are told from the male perspective, I'm so thankful for opportunities like this that help young women storytellers bloom. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping time.
Thank you, ma'am. Dear participants, do we have questions? Shatrupa, ma'am, your observations, please.
She was not well.
She's
She is here.
Yes, I was waiting for ma'am to present her paper. I was interested to see, and that was really interesting the way you talked about the anthology. I mean, when I was talking about narratives, and as you rightly said, why can't we, you know, use the term narratives instead of fiction? The way this particular work, drawing the line, I feel the title itself draws attention to this particular medium because they have tried to draw the line by drawing lines, right? It is about women artists coming together, and I believe was this part of a workshop or something? It was a result of
Yes,
some
yes,
kind
it
of
was. It
workshop
was.
done between
Yes.
these women artists. So then, if that is the result of a workshop, then already there is a conversation which is going on, and out of that conversation this product has emerged, this thing that we hold in our hands, and we are reading it. So as you said, discourse manifests itself in things that are concrete, and that is something which is very central to the idea of any graphic narrative, where they use these concrete images. They might be resembling people, or they might be just figures, they might be words, they might be sounds brought into the language of comics, and together they are weaving a narrative, and together they are making that resistance against those grand narratives which are there. And that is what we are doing here when we are talking of postmodernism. We are trying to find those fissures in those narratives which are floating about, because we somehow want to bring that change. And that is what we were discussing, that what are we doing as readers? Are we changing the narrative in some way? And definitely you did a good job in bringing this up. And how this was a result of a workshop is another thing to be explored. I think this is another angle to be taken further. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
thank you, Shatrupa, ma'am. And any questions, any responses? Sapna ma'am, it was wonderful, very good. It was nice to see
Thank
such
you.
things
Thank you.
coming out, and probably we wouldn't have come across this if you hadn't presented this. So it was nice, and I hope that this will reach more people because it will be posted on YouTube, and I hope that such things should people should know what is happening as well, and a product of a workshop. Uh, I'm happy that you took that as a topic because very rarely we find such things being represented or researched upon. So that is wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am. And
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Kichu,
Yes,
we
Sapna
shall
ma'am,
move to the next one.
for
Thank
that
you.
wonderful session. Now we move on to Dr. Navreet Sahi. Hi, hello ma'am.
Hello, hello.
Good, how?
I want to share my screen. Though my presentation is very brief, but my paper is very long, because of which I apologize that I'll not be able to present the whole of it. I'll have to cut short a few paragraphs here and there. You'll have to just tell me if you can see the screen. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry, just a second. Now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about storytelling, perspective, and point of view, an analysis of Pete Travis's film Vantage Point. The information that we rely upon to identify and understand a particular event is often compiled from a variety of sources. At the same time, however, the content of each individual source is likely to be influenced by the source's values, focus, or underlying agenda. As a result, it is common to find conflicting interpretations of the same events across sources when chronologies are compiled for empirical analysis. This paper endeavors to study the narrative structure of the film Vantage Point by Pete Travis to discuss the importance of the manner of narration in storytelling. Vantage Point recounts a series of events which are reenacted from several different perspectives and viewpoints in order to reveal a true account of what really happened. So many narratives are structured according to the conventional paradigm: exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and denouement. I hope my slides are moving and it's not just stagnant. However, although this is the structure that most spectators or readers expect, it is not always the most effective in conveying the meaning within a film. Narrative structure can be manipulated such that greater meaning is conveyed. Therefore, filmmakers choose to structure their films in a way that creates a message beyond merely telling the story. The narrative of a film is structured purposely to emphasize different parts of the story. The same story can be structured in a variety of ways. There is meaning inherent in a way a narrative is structured. Narration is a set of representational, organizational, and discursive cues that deliver the story information to the audience. The fiction film should.
Excuse me, the presentation isn't moving.
It's not moving.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So my slideshow is actually not working. So I'll have to do it like this. So this is the cover of the movie, and this is.
You haven't turned on slideshow.
I did turn on the slideshow, and when I turn on the slideshow, it doesn't happen. Can you see now?
Yeah, we can see, but I think you have to do it manually then.
No, I'm doing it. Is it happening?
Yeah.
Did
Exposition, that page is there.
so no exposition. Now I have moved on to the next one. Narratology, Fabula, Tuesday. Can you see that? No. So we'll keep it like this then.
Yeah.
I'll do it manually like this.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
fine.
not happening. Okay. Okay. So a narrative essentially comprises two elements: fabula and shusei. Fabula is the content of the story, and shusei is the narrative structure or style. The study of the narrative and narrative structure is called narratology. Narratology examines the influence of narrative structure on our perception. Filmmakers apply different narrative techniques in their films to tell the story. Stories have always been there. It, uh, it's the rendition of them which makes all the difference. The manner of narrating a story can play a significant role in determining the popularity of a story. The main story of the movie is an assassination attempt on the President of the United States by a terrorist organization. During an international summit on counterterrorism in Salamanca, Spain, the president is shot at twice and two bomb blasts kill several people, spreading terror and chaos all around. Although this is the central plot of the film, the narrative structure and the narrative technique employed in the film make it important for the viewer to use their mental faculties as the story unravels step by step, or if it is safe to say, character by character. The story is not narrated in the traditional first, second, or third person narratives. Instead, it is shown from eight different vantage points, eight different perspectives. The film begins with an American channel's journalist reporting from the venue where the president is to address the public gathering. After he is shot at, the president, the film rewinds and restarts from the beginning, but this time from the vantage point of a different character. This happens at least 6 times, as each time the whole assassination attempt is seen from the perspective of a different character. The stories of each character run parallel and are not shown in flashback. Each story turn begins at 12 p.m., half an hour before the assassination attempt, and each new story reveals a little more than the previous story. And at the end, all stories merge together to bring about the denouement. We view the stories from the vantage points of 8 characters who are in some way connected to the central event in the film. The first vantage point is of an American channel's producer, Rex Brooks, whose sole aim in life is to make the best news item possible, and she's ready to go to any extent to get her news story maximum viewership. The next vantage point is of Thomas Barnes, who belongs to the Secret Service and is the personal agent of the president. A year before, he had been shot at in an attempt to save the president from another assassin. The third vantage point follows Spanish cop Enrique, who is in charge of the mayor's protection. He sees his girlfriend Veronica embracing a stranger and planning to meet him at the underpass. On his confrontation, she dismisses his suspicions and asks him for her bag, which she had asked him to bring. After the president is shot, Enrique witnesses Veronica sliding the same bag under the podium, which explodes. He is under the suspicion of the Secret Service agents. The fourth vantage point follows an American tourist, Howard Lewis. He is seen filming people and his surroundings on his camcorder. He meets a young lady and her daughter, Anna, who reminds him of his son. And the fifth vantage point follows the president himself, who survives the assassination attempt by sending a body double in his place, but is kidnapped by the terrorists who know about the plans of the Americans. The sixth one follows the terrorist Suarez, who was responsible for the attack on the president. After the sixth vantage point, the film does not rewind but moves forward and includes the vantage points of Kent Taylor, a Secret Service agent, and Javier, a Special Forces commando and sharpshooter whose brother is held hostage by the terrorists to ensure his cooperation in kidnapping the president. So, after following all the vantage points, the truth is revealed. Americans who thought that they were too smart are outwitted by the terrorists who already know of their plans, as one of the Secret Service agents, Kent Taylor, was actually a member of the terrorist organization and had been leaking all the important information. The narrative technique used by Pete Travis emphasizes the fact that every person views things in his own way and no two persons have the same perspective regarding a particular thing. Similarly, the plot in this film is not just what happens. The plot is the series of conflicts or obstacles that the screenplay author and director introduce into the film. The most important aspect of Vantage Point is that none of the characters is the protagonist of the film. Some of the characters play a comparatively more important role in the film than the others, but there is no central character. The central character of the film is its narrative structure. As the name Vantage Point signifies, perception and point of view play the central role, and the film deals with 8 points of views explicitly and innumerable point of views implicitly. So I'll just move on over here. In films, point of view has a triple meaning. It is the main idea or the theme of the film. It is the angle from which the audience views a scene. And it is, the most importantly, the camera angle, an editing technique, which is absent in novels and other non-visual forms. So we have to remember that someone is always there between the viewer and the action of the film. that someone is telling the story from his or her point of view, and this angle vision, the point of view from which the people, events, and details of a story are viewed, is more important to consider while watching a film. Okay. The common man, however, never realizes that he never gets to see the real picture. He is always only shown what the people in power want him to see, hear, and understand. That is why Angie says, "I'm cool with censorship. I know the American people love that." When she protests, saying that there are other stories here, Rex gives her a reply which is shocking. She says, I quote, "which I don't give a shit about unless the protesters set themselves on fire. They are not our story." Unquote. There is utter disregard of humanity and compassion. There is no innocence or instruction attached to it anymore. Instead, it has become synonymous to sensationalism. The media. The question is that the question is that are such indifferent, callous, and highly selfish attitudes giving us the right information? Are we being fed biased and wrong information? Do we grow up on somebody else's point of view while the reality might be completely different from what is presented to us or what reaches us? Is it necessary that we see a situation in the same way as the one commenting on it? What one person may consider good or right, the other might not. So, what is the way to know the truth? And what actually is the truth, and who has the right and authority to define the truth? Who decides what truth is? Hence, point of view is of supreme importance. Vantage point represents what has been a significant factor in modernity's rejection of absolute truth, that everyone sees things differently. However, it focuses more on any one person's ability in fully apprehending the truth than the impossibility of truth itself. The truth is always there, but the fact remains whether a person knows it or not, and more importantly, whether he understands it or not. At the same time, the fact that no person knows the complete truth or the reality makes the viewer distrustful and skeptical of every one of them. Whether what one considers to be the truth is actually the truth or just the opposite of it. Whether what one knows is just some aspect of the complete story, because this partial knowledge of truth can completely change the story and lead to different results altogether. Vantage Point points out the fact that multiple vantage points draw one closer to the truth. Hence, the film adopts the story within a story technique to reflect individual vantage points. Storytelling occurs on many different levels, and John Barth says that, I quote, "there are tales within tales," unquote. When a character or characters in a story start narrating a story of their own, then their story or their stories become embedded narratives or hypo-narratives. The main story becomes the matrix narrative, and matrix narrative is also called a first degree narrative. A narrative which is embedded in the first degree narrative is called a second degree narrative, and I'll just leave it here. Am I running out of time? So, camera becomes a metaphor of an individual's perspective and point of view, and vantage point means the position from where a person stands and views something. In this film, the vantage point is decided by the camera because everything can be seen only through the camera lens. Therefore, although the audience gets to see the stories of all the characters from different perspectives, yet it is the camera that wields the ultimate power. Therefore, apart from the 8 vantage points that can be seen in the film, there is another point of view which is the most potent and significant as it controls all the other points of view. The director's role. And the director's role is like that of God. All the characters are his creation and he can shape their lives according to his choice. One of the most noteworthy aspects of the film is the repetition of the images of the president being shot at and the 2 bomb blasts hurling destruction and death all around. Repetition becomes a motif in the film, a metaphor for retracing time. Giorgio Agamben says, I quote, that repetition is not the return of the identical.
I would want you to conclude.
Okay. So the movie, however, ends on an optimistic note, and the vantage point illustrates that a film is not always primarily about the story itself, but about the competing perspectives on it. As Travis says himself, you've got 8 different people, 8 ways of seeing the world, 8 pieces of a puzzle. You can't solve the mystery of this film without seeing the world from different people's point of view. It's a story that you can only tell through cinema, a movie about ways of seeing. Thank you.
Thank you, Manu. It was interesting. We were listening intently to whatever the story was interesting, and the analysis was also interesting. I just felt something. You were saying that there are 8 vantage points in the movie,
Hmm.
and these 8 vantage points act like different parts of a puzzle. And once you put those things together, you are getting the truth.
Truth. Yeah.
And you also said there is the camera and the director, which can be identified with God or the transcendental signifier. Now, how can you, you know, by juxtaposing this with the postmodern way of looking at things, which says there need not be a truth and there isn't a
That is what
transcendental.
I'm saying.
So, where
That
do
there
we
is
locate the connection?
So that is what I was trying to say, that there is no ultimate truth. When I
Mm-hmm.
was saying that we come to the postmodernity's idea of the truth, that there is no one particular truth. And through this movie, through different perspectives, we are trying to tell that every person has his own version of the truth. So if you have one version and I have a different version, that does not mean that your version is not true, and also it does not mean
that,
that
that
my
that should
version
be
is.
fine, but still ultimately there is a truth in the movie, right? There is a
So
truth. Eight
there
perspectives
is
finally take us to one perspective, one truth, right? So there is a truth.
No, they take you to the culmination of a story. How
Mm-hmm.
you reach that culmination, how you reach that denouement is actually a journey that you're making. And how you making that journey is the most important thing that is over here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ma'am,
Questions? Yeah.
I really wanted to hear more, but I'm limited by time constraints. But can you please explain the Rashomon effect in the story? Because I
Yeah,
feel
it is exactly that only. It is actually the Rashomon effect only. That you're basically looking at the same story in a through different perspectives. You know, when we were taught narratology in our MPhil, we were shown Rashomon to make us understand what narratology means, how different narratives are embedded in one narrative, and how there is a story within a story, and there is a different perspective. Ultimately, whatever is happening is happening. So, what I'm trying to tell you is that something has happened. The president has been shot at. We go, we look, there has to be something. And we cannot negate the presence or the existence of something. Something exists. We can see that. Now, that existence is described or that existence is looked at or perceived differently. How that how the entire thing, how the denouement came into being, how the entire climax came into being is the actual journey that we are taking in. So it is basically, if you will see this movie, you are actually reminded of Rashomon, because the director has actually tried to do something very similar on those on those lines.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your presentation. Now we can move on to the next presenter.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I
It was very nice. Yeah.
I invite Simran Tripathi. Welcome.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay. Is my presentation visible?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
it is
sir.
visible. Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, you are visible and
Okay.
audible. Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir. My name is Simran Tripathi, and I am a research scholar from IS University, Jaipur. The title of my paper is From Pan-determinism to Free Will, Dasein Journey in Paul Auster's Mr. Vertigo. So the paper aims to trace a individual's relationship from the world. Basically, the relationship of the self and the world, and how an individual transformed from a reserved to gregarious attitude. These are the keywords that I'm going to discuss in the paper. First of all, the Dasein. Basically, Dasein is Martin Heidegger's, the German philosopher's journey that talks about the relationship of the individual and the world. Existential crisis. It's basically existentialism also about the individual. So this is how both the theories are connected. That both the theories focuses on individual's journey and individual's crisis between the world and this is also about the individual crisis from self, about the self. Pan-determinism. The theory is given by Viktor E. Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning. It means there is we all are predestined. We are all destiny is already written, and we just need to follow that destiny in order to achieve our authentic self. And the next one is free will. There is a contradiction we'll find in in this paper, that how pan-determinism contradicts with free will. That we all are free and we are willing to do. We are free to do whatever we want to do. The next philosophy is nihilism, of course, because in this postmodern era there is a lack of moral and religious beliefs, that we are not predestined. We believe that in this rational practical world we are free to take actions and to make choices. This is how the novel Mr. Vertigo, it means, first of all I want to explain the meaning of vertigo. That means a loss of balance. And similarly the novel will focus how an individual trying throughout the novel trying to make balance between the self and the world, between the authentic and inauthentic, between the past and the present. So the writer name is Paul Benjamin Auster, and he's a postmodern American Jewish episode writer. The themes of the novel that my novel will discuss, Mr. Vertigo, is autobiographical. There are many elements autobiographical, like there is an incident about Ku Klux Klan, that is a white supremacist group, who hatred group, who it is a terrorist group basically, who believe that Jews are not do not deserve to exist in America. Especially the search for identity, basically it is also autobiographical in the same way that writer is trying to searching his identity through writing this novel. And till the end we will come across that how he concludes the idea of identity crisis. So basically when there is identity there is existential, because the both are somehow similar. Existence is throughout the existential crisis he is looking for an identity. And organic development, this is also a very popular and very interesting thing, that postmodern novels do not believe in the linear process, linear development. There is no proper beginning or middle or end. And like similarly the temporal distortion we will face, that how there are flashback and flash forwards, there are past and present, there is no linear structure of the no linear narrative is here. Anti-hero, this is also we will see that how the traditional, contrary to the conventional heroes who were very brave, who were who possess a great talent or ability, do not belong to a supreme class. But contrary to this, these anti-heroes are common people. They deal with daily crisis, daily family issues are there, economic issues are there. So basically there are basic issues, and in how a individual deals with basic trivial issues. So, my research starts with the character name, Walt Clarabon Railway. Basically, in the beginning, we will meet him. He is dwelling on the streets of St. Louis, and he's a 9-year-old neglected orphan. He's living with his Uncle Slim and Aunt Peg. And in the story, we'll find how he keeps on dangling to search for an authentic self in the world. Throughout the story, he's looking for someone who can give him a kind of freedom to search for the self, but he's looking for someone who can guide his existence. So again there is a kind of suffocation comes in the form of Mr. Yehudi, the character who is a Jewish. So again, as I told you earlier, these autobiographical reflections. Auster always, in all his interviews, he said that my novel has nothing to do with Jewish identity, because he himself belongs to a Jewish class. So there we can see how Auster silently inclined towards Jewish identity. So Mr. Yehudi here plays the role of a catalyst, who is also surrogate father or shepherd for the world, who helps him to get his identity. In the beginning, we will see that how Yehudi tells him to, okay, I will teach you the act of leviation, and with this leviation, you will get a identity. Behind the veil, behind the character Walt, Yehudi, who's a Jew, he is also looking for his identity. So basically we can trace how the self and the world self, Yehudi is also individual. They both are looking for an identity in the world somewhere, not for self but for the world also. While teaching leviation, we can see how one day there is the act of elevation is something when we go upwards from the earth. So there are two words, the heaven and the ground. Whenever Yehudi moves high in the sky, there we can see he and again he returned back to the earth. So there is a kind of restoration that keep on cycle, the cycle will keep on going. Once he will fly, then again returning to the returning back to the earth. So this is a symbol basically that every individual who is trying to locate a self in the imaginary world or maybe in the transcendence, he will definitely fail. This restoration coming back to the earth is the only solution where we can actually seek for a self. We cannot find for maybe find self, but we can seek or we can look for a self. So after restoration, after coming back to the earth, he see that how we all are living together. He's living with Yehudi. Aesop is a character. Mother Sue is a character. He both all are living together, but still somewhere he's alone in inside. He make choices under the dominance of Yehudi. He is, at the same time he looks for freedom. He doubt a lot of time that maybe Yehudi will he able to get me, will he able to help me in getting my identity. So there was a kind of skepticism, but still he is looking for responsibility towards Yehudi, that okay, he's my teacher, I am responsible towards him, he's responsible. So these are the all interlinked criteria that is a postmodern novel is showcasing. There is a contradiction between belief and rationality. We can see how Walt is believes that Yehudi is a guardian angel, a symbolically plays the role of shepherd also, and the surrogate father of Walt, who introduced Walt to his actual abilities that could help him in identifying truth. And at the same time, there is a sudden awakening point where Walt realizes that maybe he's not able to help me. Maybe he's not my way towards my authentic self. So this is how we can see he keep on dangling between his decisions, his past, his present, and all at the same time. Walt's resurrection. One day, what happened one fine day when Yehudi said, Walt, okay, I will bury you under the earth. This is your maybe a kind of exam. So at that time, Yehudi realizes this is a kind of resurrection. The soil of the earth purifies his soul. That after coming to the earth, this is also symbolic, a very symbolic aspect. When Walt came out of the earth, he realizes a kind of resurrection in himself, and he feels that okay, I am pure, I am ready, I'm all set to go for I'm all I can start my search again. So this is how we can see, this is symbolic how he keep on dangling between passive and active nihilism. At one point he realizes I cannot find any truth in the life, and again he started his search. There is a loss of balance, again the aspect of skepticism that makes him doubtful towards his towards the search. And again the imprint of traumatic memories here. Okay, so basically memories are there where he keeps on dangling. This is the whole cycle where he keeps on dangling between the Dasein by being in the world, then he choose escape, return to the world, and again quest remains incomplete. This is how the thesis discusses that how the search generates a kind of existential frustration in him. And at the same time, at the end of the novel, we will found how Auster concludes his novel with the element of writing. He decides that okay, I will search myself in writing part, I will write a novel and I'll look for myself. So this is how the cycle goes: frustration, repression. There was no one in the world whom with Walt can talk, and at the final end he found a way, he finds a way of to express himself. This is how I can conclude that throughout the novel it is an open ending novel. Maybe in future Auster will write another part because he's a live writer nowadays. So maybe in future he will write another part where he can complete his search. But postmodernism is something about an open ending. It won't complete us, it gives its fragments, it gives us plurality in itself. So this is how the character also transform his journey from existentialist to absurd realist. He don't stop his search. He keep on looking for the authentic self. These are my work citations that I have used. Thank you.
Nice, Simran. Thank you. That was a nice presentation, and it was very clear that you had the novel imprinted in your heart and soul. You were speaking from the heart, and I really like the way you presented. Questions, please, participants? Do we have questions? Simran, you can stop presenting. Yeah, good. Okay, Simran, a couple of very small observations, um, just regarding the typing. And the thing is, yeah, you have presented a paper. I mean, you have written a paper, and this is just a presentation. But still, when we type certain things, there are certain minor things that can lead to our paper getting rejected when you submit it to a journal, for example. So be very meticulous about typographical errors. Spelling, there are certain I could find a few of them, like levitation or distortation. It is temporal distortion, so it should be distortion. And when we type, we have to be very clear that we have to, in this conference, they are following MLA 8 citations time. So it is not only about citation, it is about how to type our paper, right? So for example, if you put a comma, there is a rule, there is a standard how we should do that. So the space should be after the comma, never before the comma. Most punctuation marks, whether it is a full stop, whether it is a comma, semicolon, the space follows the punctuation mark, not before the punctuation mark. These are minor things, but
After comma and then space.
after comma, and then we should put a
Then
space
space.
while typing. These are minor things, but when you submit it to journals, they will run it through some softwares that will check for these errors, and for this our paper can get rejected. Whatever effort we are putting in to write a paper, all the content, finally for these minor things our paper can get rejected. So it's important that we focus on those minor things as well. The presentation, the paper, everything was very good. All the best, Simran. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
And
Thank
we
you,
have
Simran ma'am.
yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Simran ma'am, for your presentation. Now we move on to Samiksha Patnaik.
Samiksha, are you here? Samiksha Patnaik, a paper on Don DeLillo's Failing Man. Samiksha, are you here? I think she is not here, right? Can you see the full list of participants? No.
I asked in the comments box too, and I cannot. Secret part is the Navreet ma'am and
Yeah. Yeah, so if she is not here, then we will wind up the session.
wind up
We will commence the next session at 5:30, right?
5:30 to 7.
Yeah, so same place at 5:30 p.m. Paper presentations. The third session will commence, and this will continue to be room number 1, Slaughterhouse 5, and we have 6 paper presentations scheduled from 5:30 to 7. If you are here, Rituparna, Dr. Mali, Vicky, Momin, Safana, Kamaljot, Kaur. So hope you all, if you are here, be here at 5:30 p.m. And thank you so much, all dear participants. The papers were very good. I have to really say this because most conferences we find a lot of participants, we find a lot of things, but we sometimes feel that the papers are not up to the mark. But in this conference, what I see is the participation is a little disappointing. We have only 12 people attending the paper presentations, but the quality is simply outstanding. And Sacred Heart, thank you so much, ma'am. All of you, all the paper presenters, you were wonderful with your papers, with your ideas, and I found not a single paper not worthy of a conference. So great papers, and the first paper, it was by a student, and then we had research scholars, professors, it was a nice mix. There were movies, there were novels, a lot of very interesting things. So thank you all, and have a great time ahead, and see you in the next session. Hopefully you will attend you will be here for the next session as well, irrespective of whether you are present in next session. Thank you.
Thank you, participants. You may leave the meeting. We will have the next section